So friends, Donald Trump is now indicted in federal district court in Washington, D.C. for his attempt to overturn the results of the 2020 presidential election, for his attempt to deny Joe Biden his rightful election win, for his attempt to unlawfully and unconstitutionally retain the power of the presidency. In a very real sense, Donald Trump now stands indicted for trying to bring an end to the American experiment, an end to our beloved democracy. Let's talk about that, because justice matters. Hey all, Glenn Kirshner here. So friends, today is a good day for the rule of law. Today is a good day for accountability, because today Donald Trump was indicted in federal court in Washington, D.C. for his attempt to overthrow our democracy on and around January 6th, 2021. Now, friends, there is a lot to absorb in this 45-page indictment that was handed down by a federal grand jury earlier today. What I want to do is just talk about some of the top line takeaways, and then in the coming days, I think we'll kind of delve into the weeds, some of the really interesting aspects of this extraordinarily persuasive 45-page indictment. Let me start with the caption, United States of America versus Donald J. Trump. That's right, Donald Trump is once again on the wrong side of the V. Here are the 4 charges that were indicted by the grand jury. Count 1, conspiracy to defraud the United States. Count 2, conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding. Count 3, obstruction of and attempt to obstruct an official proceeding. And count 4, conspiracy against rights. And if you're scoring at home, friends, the maximum statutory punishment, if he's convicted of all crimes, is in excess of 50 years. Now, the federal guidelines will bring in his ultimate sentence well below that, but the maximum statutory punishment is actually 55 years in prison. Now, let me just read the first couple of paragraphs. This is how Special Counsel Jack Smith opens the indictment of Donald Trump. The defendant, Donald J. Trump, was the 45th President of the United States and a candidate for re-election in 2020. The defendant lost the 2020 presidential election. Despite having lost, the defendant was determined to remain in power. So for more than 2 months following Election Day on November 3rd, 2020, the defendant spread lies that there had been outcome-determinative fraud in the election and that he had actually won. These claims were false, and the defendant knew they were false. But the defendant repeated and widely disseminated them anyway to make his knowingly false claims appear legitimate, create an intense national atmosphere of mistrust and anger, and erode public faith in the administration of the election. Shortly after Election Day, the defendant also pursued unlawful means of discounting legitimate votes and subverting the election results. In so doing, the defendant perpetrated 3 criminal conspiracies: conspiracy to defraud the United States, conspiracy to corruptly obstruct and impede the January 6th congressional proceeding, and a conspiracy against the right to vote and to have one's vote counted. Now, friends, let's turn to one of the topics that I find intensely interesting and a little curious, and that is the topic of Donald Trump's co-conspirators. Because in this indictment, Donald Trump stands alone. He is the only one criminally indicted. However, there are 6 co-conspirators in this indictment. They're not listed by name, but they are described, and it's pretty easy to glean who these 6 co-conspirators are. First of all, let's go through the 6 co-conspirators. The first one, co-conspirator 1, is listed as an attorney who was willing to spread knowingly false claims and pursue strategies that the defendant's 2020 re-election campaign attorneys would not pursue. And that co-conspirator 1, seems to be Rudy Giuliani. There has been confirmation already in the reporting of a number of these names, though I don't think all of them. But co-conspirator 1, Rudy Giuliani. Co-conspirator 2, an attorney who devised and attempted to implement a strategy to leverage the vice president's ceremonial role overseeing the certification proceeding to obstruct the certification of the presidential election. And co-conspirator number 2 appears to be John Eastman. Co-conspirator number 3, an attorney whose unfounded claims of election fraud the defendant, Donald Trump, privately acknowledged to others sounded crazy. Nonetheless, the defendant, Trump, embraced and publicly amplified co-conspirator 3's disinformation. Co-conspirator 3 seems to be Sidney Powell. Co-conspirator 4, a Justice Department official who worked on civil matters and who, with the defendant, Trump, attempted to use the Justice Department to open sham election crime investigations and influence state legislatures with knowingly false claims of election fraud. That is Jeffrey Clark, a high Department of Justice official who corrupted and weaponized the Department of Justice as part of Donald Trump's criminal conspiracy to retain power. Co-conspirator number 5, an attorney who assisted in devising and attempting to implement a plan to submit fraudulent slates of presidential electors to obstruct the certification proceeding. That appears to be an attorney named Kenneth Chesebro. And co-conspirator number 6, a political consultant who helped implement a plan to submit fraudulent slates of presidential electors to obstruct the certification proceeding. That appears to be, or it may be, Peter Navarro. Now, here's why I wanted to mention those 6 co-conspirators. We don't know what the status of those 6 individuals are. Are they cooperating witnesses? In other words, have they pleaded guilty to their own crimes, agreed to cooperate, and perhaps testified in the grand jury about the crimes of Donald Trump, and their guilty pleas remain under seal? Or are they uncharged at this moment and they are soon to be indicted? It really is a curiosity that this indictment charges only Donald Trump, but names 6 co-conspirators, or identifies in substance 6 co-conspirators, each of whom has criminal culpability for committing crimes as part of their conspiracies with Donald Trump. One thing I am fairly confident of, friends, is these 6 co-conspirators will not go uncharged, will not go unindicted, will not go unpunished. You know, I don't see Jack Smith giving any of them a pass for their crimes, but as of yet, they appear not to be indicted because they did not make an appearance in this indictment. Could it be that Jack Smith only wanted to indict Donald Trump as the lone defendant in this indictment so that he can promptly move this case to trial, so that he can honor Donald Trump's speedy trial rights and the speedy trial rights of we the people, to have this case tried and resolved well in advance of the November 2024 presidential election. Could be, because if you put a whole bunch of defendants in a big old conspiracy indictment, it can bog things down. It can make it very difficult to find an early trial date that all defendants and all defense attorneys are able to meet. And when you have lots of defendants in a case, even when you do get a trial date set, defendants are forever coming up with reasons for continuances. They need more time. And that's not a criticism, it's just a reality of our practice. So maybe Jack Smith is about to drop a big old conspiracy indictment with all of the co-conspirators, and he wanted to go to trial against Donald Trump alone. Because let's face it, in the event Donald Trump is the Republican nominee for president in the 2024 election, as insane as that sounds, I think the American people, when they're casting their ballots for president in November 2024, have a right to know if they're casting a ballot for a convicted felon, Donald Trump, or for a completely exonerated, innocent man, Donald Trump, because he went to trial in this and perhaps other cases and was fully exonerated, was found not guilty on all counts. Extremely unlikely, though that would be. Seems to me the American voters, come November 2024, have a right to know exactly who it is they're voting for, a convicted felon or an exonerated defendant. Let me end with this, friends. The judge who was assigned to preside over Donald Trump's case is a judge named Tanya Chutkan. I know Ms. Chutkan, I know Judge Chutkan, because I tried murder cases against her years ago, back in the day, when she was a public defender for the District of Columbia, and I was a federal prosecutor and assistant United States attorney at the D.C. U.S. Attorney's Office trying murder cases. And I have kept up with her career. She has been a federal judge for nearly a decade now. And what I can tell you from my firsthand experience working against Ms. Chutkan in a courtroom, trying murder cases, she is a smart, strong, honest, honorable, ethical attorney, person, and I am quite sure judge. I have had the opportunity to be in her courtroom after she was appointed to the federal bench, and I've seen her handle some matters, some trials, and she will give Donald Trump a fair trial. She will give him a speedy trial, and she will preside over that case in the way a federal judge should preside. Honestly, ethically, fairly, independently, and fearlessly. So I am very pleased that Judge Tanya Chutkan received this assignment. These are random assignments, and I very much look forward to watching her preside over the trial of Donald Trump for his democracy-busting crimes, for which he will be convicted, because justice matters. Friends, it's a good day for the rule of law and for accountability. Please stay safe, please stay tuned, and I look forward to talking with you all again tomorrow.